This expedition through Wild Antarctica reminds us that we are temporary guardians of wonders that transcend comprehension. If this journey touched your soul, share it with fellow explorers of the natural world. Leave a comment about the moment that most moved your heart. Subscribe to continue exploring the most extraordinary sanctuaries on our planet. Activate notifications so you never miss an expedition. Every view, every like, every share keeps alive the flame of curiosity that lights the way to unknown worlds. Thank you for accompanying us on this frozen odyssey. Until our next encounter with the impossible made possible through the majesty of wildlife. The journey continues.
Welcome to Wild Antarctica, extreme survival in the frozen deserts.
"14 million years ago, when the Earth was still sketching the first outlines of its geography, a vast landmass began its slow drift to the edge of the world. What we now call Antarctica was not born in ice. It was once green, tropical, alive with forests whispering to warm winds of forgotten ages. Dinosaurs walked its shores, and rivers sang songs that only the ice remembers now. The transformation was no sudden event, but a symphony played over millions of years. Inch by inch, the continent slid southward, carrying with it the seeds of its own metamorphosis. Winters lengthened, rivers silenced, forests bowed to the encroaching cold until green surrendered to white. A surrender measured not in centuries, but in aeons. And yet life refused exile. It transformed. It stayed. It learned the language of the cold. If it could not change the world, it would change itself. Today, the ice that covers 98% of Antarctica is more than frozen water. It is a living archive, a crystalline chronicle of Earth's climate history. Each meter of depth is a page, each trapped bubble of air a breath from a forgotten world. Within this frozen library lies stardust that fell when mammoths roamed Siberia, ash from eruptions that shook distant continents, and the very respiration of the planet preserved as sacred relics of time. This ice sheet is not still. It breathes, it shifts, it moves in rhythms far beyond human comprehension. Ancient glaciers creep millimeter by millimeter toward the sea, dragging with them stones older than humanity itself. Beneath this vast white mantle, mountains sleep. Entire ranges remain buried, their summits piercing the ice like the fingers of giants entombed. Mount Vinson rises 5,000 meters into the sky, a silent sentinel defying the crushing weight of frozen time. But the edges are where the true magic happens. Where ice meets ocean, where solid meets liquid, a boundary is born that is both ending and beginning. These waters, enriched by nutrients released over millennia, become the most fertile nurseries of the Southern Ocean. In the perpetual twilight of these depths, life thrives. Swarms of krill, tiny, fragile crustaceans, form living clouds stretching for miles. They may seem insignificant, yet they are the foundation of a food web that sustains the ocean's greatest giants. Currents born in Antarctic waters carry these gifts across the globe, feeding coral reefs, tropical shores, and distant coasts that will never feel the touch of ice. Antarctica is not just a continent, it is the hydraulic heart of Earth, pumping life through the arteries of the global ocean. Here, the wind is no mere movement of air. Katabatic gusts descend from frozen plateaus with the fury of 200 kilometers per hour, sculpting rock with shards of ice, crafting landscapes that border on the supernatural. These winds carry stories, the mineral scent of rocks unseen for millions of years, the shimmer of ice crystals swirling in hypnotic spirals, optical wonders that transform the sky into a kaleidoscope, sun halos, ice dogs, and frozen mirages. In the rare ice-free valleys, the land resembles another planet. Ancient soils stripped bare, carved by the wind into textures untouched by rain, stones that once witnessed the breakup of continents, fossils of creatures that vanished long before complex life emerged. Here, silence has substance. It is so profound that even the pulse of blood in your veins becomes audible. In these valleys, the earth reveals its naked truth, stripped of all ornaments of life. And still, even here, life endures. Extremophile microbes colonize the insides of rocks. Lichens paint stubborn strokes of color across barren stone. And in molecular refuges, existence finds its foothold. Above, the aurora australis turns Antarctic nights into cathedrals of light, green, red, and violet curtains rippling across the heavens like the visible breath of the planet. It is the magnetosphere unveiled, a reminder that even this isolated land is woven into the cosmic dance. Beneath the ice lie hidden oceans, subglacial lakes like Vostok and Ellsworth, sealed off for millions of years. In their dark waters may live organisms shaped by an evolution entirely apart from the rest of Earth's biosphere. Every drop could hold genetic secrets, new adaptations that expand the very definition of life. This is primordial Antarctica, the stage for Earth's greatest survival epic. Here, where the thermometer plunges to -80, where the wind can strip the breath from your lungs, where polar night lasts for months, life does not merely persist, it triumphs. In the relentless forge of the far south, evolution abandoned its usual blueprints and began sculpting masterpieces of survival that defy biological logic. Every creature that calls Antarctica home carries in its DNA the marks of an artistry that turned weakness into strength and limitation into power. The emperor penguin, sovereign of this frozen kingdom, is no ordinary bird that forgot how to fly. It is a living revolution, a species reborn by the impossible. Its feathers are not mere plumage, but an engineering marvel, a thermal shield that would humble human design. 4 layers of protection wrap this monarch. Waterproof outer feathers repel wind and sea with flawless efficiency. Beneath them, a second layer traps warm air, forming an insulating barrier. Deeper still, dense feathers create a microclimate, locking in constant temperature regardless of the storm outside. And pressed against the skin, a soft down layer works like a built-in heater, powered by microscopic muscle contractions. Even its feet are works of biomechanical genius, equipped with heat-exchanging blood vessels that recycle warmth as they stride across ice for hours. The penguin's nostrils act as natural heat recovery systems, warming the air before it reaches delicate lungs. Every breath is calculated survival. The Weddell seal has evolved into a biological submarine. Its lungs collapse safely during deep dives, eliminating the risk of gas embolisms. Oxygen isn't stored in airways but in muscle and blood, carried by hemoglobin re-engineered to bind extraordinary amounts. With heart rate slowed to a crawl, blood is shunted only to vital organs, an elegant economy that keeps it alive where others would perish. Its whiskers are radar, sensing minute vibrations in the water to hunt fish in the pitch-black abyss. Even its teeth are tools, worn down to keep breathing holes open in the ice, life carving its own survival system. The leopard seal reigns as apex predator of Antarctic seas. Its streamlined body is both torpedo and executioner, accelerating to 40 kilometers per hour in bursts of raw power. Its jaw is a weapon of versatility. Blade-like front teeth seize slippery prey, while multi-cusped back teeth filter krill or tear apart larger victims. A supersized heart drives blood through reinforced arteries, keeping muscles explosive even in freezing depths. Above the ocean, the wandering albatross is master of the winds. Its vast wings are precision instruments, riding invisible currents for hours without a single beat. It reads pressure gradients like sailors read stars, crossing oceans with ease. Tube-shaped nostrils double as navigational tools, detecting scents carried hundreds of kilometers across the sea. Even in storms that ground other birds, its tendon-locking wings turn turbulence into effortless flight. The snow petrel, smaller but no less remarkable, is the phantom of blizzards. Its feathers are oiled to repel both water and forming ice. It can glide through snowstorms blind to others, guided by subtle vibrations in the air. Its metabolism burns fuel like a high-performance engine, generating enough heat to defy temperatures that would freeze blood in minutes. Beneath the surface, the Antarctic icefish carries perhaps the strangest adaptation of all. Blood without hemoglobin. Transparent plasma flows through its veins, transporting dissolved oxygen in ways no red blood cell could survive at such temperatures. Antifreeze proteins run through its body, preventing lethal ice crystals from forming. Its oversized heart beats fast and strong, compensating for the inefficiency of its ghostly circulation. And at the foundation, the Antarctic krill, microscopic yet mighty. Their compound eyes detect faint traces of light across vast water columns. Their beating limbs both propel and feed them, funneling nutrients from the sea itself. In winter, when the surface is sealed by ice, Krill descend into the deep, slowing their metabolism to near stasis, suspended life, waiting for the return of the sun. These are Antarctica's living blueprints, designs honed by millions of years, where only the most elegant solutions survived the trial of absolute cold. Here, evolution is not a process. It is an art form. The realm of eternal ice, so time is not measured in hours or days, but in the very breaths of the earth itself. Here, where the sun vanishes for months and then blazes without pause for an equal span, life has evolved rhythms that pulse in harmony with ancient cosmic cycles. The Antarctic awakening is not tied to the sunrise. It begins with the return of light, an event that marks not only the end of polar night, but the opening of a biological symphony resonating across the continent. It is as if every creature stirs from a shared dream, synchronized by an inner clock that ticks on scales beyond human comprehension. In the colonies of emperor penguins, this awakening takes on epic proportions. Thousands that endured the most brutal months of the Antarctic winter emerge from a collective trance of survival. Their bodies, gaunt after months of absolute fasting, begin to respond to the first chemical signals announcing the return of oceanic abundance. Their social behavior during this time reveals a sophistication rivaling the most complex societies in nature. They form living circles of warmth, dynamic structures where each bird rotates between the frozen edge and the heated core with mathematical precision. No one remains on the deadly periphery long enough to perish. No one monopolizes the sheltering heat at the center. This rotational choreography functions as a biological algorithm of thermal optimization. Penguins at the rim slowly move inward, while those who have warmed yield their privileged place in an act of evolutionary altruism that ensures collective survival. It is thermal democracy in its purest form, where the tyranny of cold enforces absolute cooperation. When the first Antarctic spring storms arrive, the colonies transform into superorganisms. Tens of thousands compress into formations that minimize exposure to wind, creating microclimates where temperatures may rise 30 degrees above the raging exterior. The roar of the gale is muted into a whisper by the sheer mass of living bodies. During these storms, which may last for weeks, penguins enter a state of collective meditation. Their heartbeats synchronize, their breathing falls into shared rhythms. It is as if the colony itself becomes a single organism, each bird a cell of a greater body devoted solely to survival. Beneath the surrounding waters, Weddell seals have developed social rituals that turn hunting into collective art. They do not hunt alone. They dive in coordinated formations, each seal assuming a precise position in three-dimensional strategies that encircle entire schools of fish. They communicate through subsonic vibrations that travel for kilometers under the frozen sea, orchestrating movements with a precision that would shame a military squadron. Their underwater calls weave soundscapes that map the ocean itself. Whispers amplify through the cold currents, carrying information about prey, predators, and shifting ice. It is a biological internet, where every voice contributes to a collaborative chart of the Antarctic deep. In breeding season, these communications intensify into near musical complexity. Males and females compose duets that last for hours, each note encoding fitness, territory, and intent. These frozen love songs echo through the abyss like operas, celebrating life's persistence in a world of extremes. Leopard seals, solitary hunters by nature, follow territorial protocols that avoid needless conflict in an environment where every conserved calorie can mean survival. They mark aquatic domains with chemical traces that can linger for weeks in the frigid waters, creating olfactory maps respected instinctively by other predators. When territories overlap, disputes are resolved through ritualized displays that resemble choreographed dances. Side by side, they showcase size and strength through calculated gestures, communicating lethal capacity without wasting energy in destructive fights. The weaker retreats with dignity, acknowledging superiority without bloodshed. In Antarctic skies, albatrosses and petrels have mastered collective navigation, transforming migration into a social phenomenon. Seasoned veterans lead, reading atmospheric currents and weather patterns with wisdom earned from decades of flight. The young learn migratory routes through observation and imitation, creating aerial traditions passed across generations. In severe storms, these birds form flying platoons, each positioned to maximize aerodynamic efficiency. They exploit slipstreams created by companions, reducing individual strain while maintaining the group's speed and course. It is instinctive aeronautical engineering on a scale that defies human design. Their calls function as airborne traffic control, signals announcing shifts in direction, altitude changes, or the discovery of favorable thermals. Each bird contributes to a collective intelligence that adapts constantly to the volatile skies of the Antarctic. In the ocean's depths, krill orchestrate formations that rank among the largest gatherings of animal life on Earth. Vast clouds stretch for tens of kilometers, trillions of individuals moving as one through polar currents. Their cycles follow not the sun's position, but subtle gradients of temperature and nutrients, migrating vertically by hundreds of meters in patterns that resemble choreographed ballets. These migrations pulse energy through the entire Antarctic food web. When trillions rise toward the surface, they ferry nutrients upward, fertilizing the waters. When they descend, they carry carbon back to the depths, acting as a living pump that regulates the chemistry of the global ocean. During the continent's relentless storms, with winds exceeding 100 kilometers per hour, every form of life assumes defensive architecture. Penguins huddle into aerodynamic shields against the gales. Seals dive deep, escaping surface turbulence. Birds seek less hostile latitudes or retreat into ice crevices that serve as natural bunkers. Even the ice itself becomes part of this survival symphony. Icebergs drift as floating fortresses, creating sheltered microenvironments. Their surfaces trap snow that compacts into temporary refuges. Their shadows carve zones of slightly warmer water that attract marine life. In this land of apparent desolation, every element of nature contributes to a complex life support system. This is the pulse of Antarctica, a rhythm synchronizing all southern life into a symphony of survival, linking the smallest crustacean to the largest marine mammal in cadences that celebrate the persistence of life against all odds. In Antarctica, bringing new life into the world is not just hope. It's a challenge against the impossible. On this frozen continent, where temperatures can drop to 80 degrees below zero and winds reach over 200 kilometers per hour, every birth is a remarkable victory of nature. The emperor penguin chooses the harshest winter on the planet to reproduce. It may seem crazy, but it's actually a brilliant strategy. While other creatures flee the cold, these penguins turn the extreme season into a unique advantage. Everything begins in autumn, when thousands of penguins march across the ice for up to 100 kilometers to reach breeding grounds used by their families for centuries. Once there, males and females perform courtship dances, moving in perfect synchronization and singing calls that echo like choruses across the vast white landscape. These calls aren't random noises. Each penguin has a unique voice like a sound fingerprint. This allows pairs to recognize each other even in colonies of up to 200,000 individuals, cutting through the roaring wind and blizzards. After mating, the female lays a single egg, her total investment in the next generation. The most delicate moment comes when she transfers it to the male. Any misstep could mean the egg freezes instantly. That's why the males have a special skin fold that works as an incubator, keeping the egg warm. While the females journey to the ocean to feed, males fast for more than 4 months, surviving only on fat reserves built during the summer. To withstand the harshest winter storms, they huddle together in massive groups called huddles, where each penguin warms and is warmed by the others. They rotate constantly in a carefully calculated rhythm so that no one freezes to death. A thermal ballet where every move is a matter of life or death. When the chick finally hatches, small and covered in gray down, it relies entirely on its father's warmth. It survives only by staying tucked in the incubator pouch, where the father's body creates a tropical microclimate in the heart of the frozen desert. The females return months later, marking an emotional reunion. Amid thousands of similar-looking birds, each mother finds her mate and chick by their unique calls. The first feeding is a ceremony of life. Mothers regurgitate food from the ocean, providing not only nutrition but also antibodies to protect the chick in its first months. As the chicks grow, they attend a collective school called a creche. Here, they learn social skills, how to protect themselves from the cold, and how to form group formations that will be crucial as adults. But Antarctica is not only about penguins. Weddell seals turn the ice into a nursery. They give birth in natural ice crevices, sheltered from the wind but close to the ocean. The pups are born with thick fur but must learn to swim in waters that would freeze a human in minutes. Their mothers teach them gradually, diving deeper each time while calling to them underwater with unique sounds that act like acoustic umbilical cords. Albatrosses and petrels also have remarkable stories of loyalty. Even after months of being separated across oceans, they return to the same nest, often used for decades. To feed their chicks, they embark on trips lasting weeks, traveling thousands of kilometers, bringing back fish and squid. Meanwhile, the chicks develop resilience. They learn to regulate their body temperature, strengthen their wings, and prepare for the ultimate challenge, facing the endless ocean on their own. This is the true saga of Antarctica, a place where every birth is an act of endurance, every chick a miracle, and each generation carries not only its genes, but also the ancestral knowledge of how to survive in one of the most extreme environments on Earth. Antarctica doesn't experience seasons like the rest of the world. Here, time swings between fury and calm, between storms that can last for months and lulls that are always preludes to new chaos. In this realm, where nature shows its most relentless face, every creature has developed survival strategies that turn catastrophe into opportunity and devastation into renewal. When the massive katabatic storms arrive, descending from the trans-Antarctic mountains at speeds exceeding 300 kilometers per hour, all life on the white continent switches into absolute survival mode. These winds aren't just moving air, they are atmospheric rivers of destruction. Carrying ice crystals turned into deadly projectiles capable of piercing flesh and bone. The sound of these storms is supernatural. Howls echo across the frozen expanse like voices of primordial giants, roars that shake the very ground beneath the weight of moving air. Subsonic frequencies travel hundreds of kilometers, warning animals of the approaching fury hours before the first winds strike. In emperor penguin colonies, a major storm transforms tens of thousands of individuals into a single organism of resistance. They form aggregations of over 50,000 birds, packed densely enough to generate internal heat collectively. The outer edges act as a living shield, protecting the central core from the full force of the deadly winds. During storms that can last 3 consecutive weeks, the penguins enter a state of active social hibernation. Their metabolism synchronizes, reducing brain and body activity to the minimum required to stay alive. Heart rates drop below 20 beats per minute. Breathing becomes nearly imperceptible. The entire colony becomes a single entity, dedicated solely to surviving the meteorological apocalypse. Rotation within these superaggregations follows precise biological algorithms. Penguins on the outer edges, exposed to direct icy wind, slowly move toward the warm center, while those in the core yield their privileged spots in a turn-based system that ensures no individual stays in a lethal zone long enough to die of hypothermia. This rotation moves like peristaltic waves through the aggregation, propagating through the mass of bodies in a rhythm that optimizes heat transfer while minimizing structural disturbance. It's instinctive social engineering that defies human understanding of animal cooperation. When winds reach extreme speeds capable of lifting penguins off the ground and throwing them against ice formations, the aggregations compact even further, reaching near impossible densities. Penguins literally merge into a single mass where individual distinctions vanish. Heads nestle between bodies, feet intertwine for mutual support. It's a temporary fusion of separate identities into a collective being focused solely on survival. During these extreme compressions, individual respiratory systems coordinate to create pockets of warm air circulating through the aggregation. Each exhale contributes to an internal atmosphere that keeps temperatures above freezing, even when the environment outside drops to 80 degrees below zero. It's a biological heating system operating through fluid mechanics, instinctively applied by creatures that have never studied thermal physics. In surrounding waters, Weddell seals respond to great storms by diving to depths where surface turbulence cannot reach them. They descend 300 meters or more, finding absolute calm, even when the ocean's surface is devastated by 20-meter waves generated by katabatic winds. In these refuges, seals enter a state of energy conservation that allows them to survive for weeks without returning to the surface for air. Their hearts slow drastically, pumping blood only to vital organs in a cardiovascular economy that stretches oxygen reserves far beyond normal limits. It is aquatic hibernation, turning these creatures into biological submarines capable of waiting indefinitely for surface storms to subside. During these survival dives, seals navigate underwater landscapes transformed by storm action. Surface-generated currents redistribute nutrients across entire water columns. Krill and other planktonic organisms concentrate in dense pockets, creating extraordinary feeding opportunities for predators capable of reaching these depths. Leopard seals, supreme predators of Antarctic waters, developed even more sophisticated strategies to exploit the disturbances caused by major storms. They follow storm edges like cosmic surfers, using turbulence-generated currents to travel oceanic distances with minimal energy expenditure. During sea ice storms, when winds fracture and redistribute kilometers-long ice plates, leopard seals navigate newly opened channels like explorers of virgin territory. These temporary ice openings reveal waters isolated for months, rich with marine life that developed in relative protection during the Antarctic winter. Hunting under these extreme conditions requires techniques combining predation with navigation in a constantly changing environment. Leopard seals learn to read subtle signs of ice movement, anticipating openings and closures of channels with timing that can mean the difference between capturing abundant prey or being trapped under tons of shifting ice. In stormy skies, albatrosses and petrels do not flee extreme weather. They embrace it as an opportunity for more efficient flight. During Antarctic storms, updrafts created by atmospheric turbulence form aerial highways, allowing them to soar for hundreds of kilometers without flapping their wings. These birds have developed the ability to read invisible atmospheric maps, detecting pressure and temperature gradients imperceptible to other organisms. They navigate through complex storm systems, finding wind tunnels that transport them through conditions that would destroy human aircraft. During the worst storms, when visibility drops to zero and crosswinds can change direction in seconds, albatrosses perform aerial maneuvers defying conventional aerodynamic principles. They fly backward, sideways, in spirals that exploit atmospheric vortices as natural elevators. It's instinctive aerial acrobatics that turns meteorological chaos into a navigational advantage. Snow petrels have taken specialization even further. During blizzards that create total blindness, they navigate using atmospheric echolocation, emitting calls that reflect off suspended ice particles to map their three-dimensional environment. It's airborne sonar that enables precise flight even when vision is useless. During whiteout winds, when air becomes almost solid with ice crystal density, petrels can fly through conditions that seem to defy the laws of physics. Their feathers are coated with special oils that repel ice accumulation, keeping aerodynamic surfaces functional, even when every inch of the environment is covered with crystals that would create fatal drag for other birds. In deep waters, Antarctic marine life has developed survival strategies for extreme ocean conditions. When surface storms generate 40-meter waves, the kinetic energy propagates through entire water columns, creating deep currents that redistribute marine life on an oceanic scale. Antarctic krill respond with synchronized vertical migrations, involving trillions of individuals moving simultaneously through hundreds of meters of depth. During severe storms, entire swarms dive to abyssal refuges, creating concentrated feeding zones that attract predators from across the Southern Ocean. These storm-driven krill migrations generate extraordinary feeding events for deep-sea life that normally survives on scarce resources. Giant squids, abyssal fish, deep crustaceans, an entire ecosystem living permanently in oceanic darkness suddenly has access to abundant food, sustaining accelerated growth and reproduction. When storms finally subside, they leave behind Antarctic landscapes completely transformed. En este punto de la travesía, hacemos una breve pausa. Si lo que estás presenciando aquí te conmueve de alguna manera, suscríbete al canal y activa la campana para no perder los próximos pasos de nuestra expedición. Tu presencia hace posible que más documentales como este sigan contándose. Ice formations that existed for decades are redistributed into entirely new configurations. Massive icebergs are released from the ice sheet edges, beginning oceanic journeys that may last years or decades. These newly freed icebergs act as floating islands, carrying Antarctic ecosystems to distant waters. Their surfaces harbor algae colonies and microorganisms developed in Antarctic isolation. As they drift northward, they bring with them samples of southern life capable of colonizing new oceanic environments. The gradual melting of these icebergs creates plumes of nutrient-rich freshwater that fertilize the surrounding seas. These plumes attract temperate and tropical marine life, forming zones of ecological mixing where species that would never naturally meet interact in temporary evolutionary experiments. During calmer periods between storms, Antarctic life enters phases of recovery and accelerated growth to compensate for extreme survival periods. Penguin colonies disperse from superaggregations, resuming normal feeding and social activity. Individuals who lost significant weight during storms enter intensive feeding phases to rebuild essential body reserves. These recovery periods are also opportunities to repair damage caused by extreme conditions. Penguins remove ice accumulations from their feathers through elaborate mutual cleaning sessions. Seals emerge from depth to breathe fresh air and restore normal oxygen levels in their circulatory systems. Seabirds use stable atmospheric conditions to cover long distances, searching for feeding areas disrupted and concentrated by recent storms. Yet even during these lulls, all Antarctic life remains on constant alert for the next storm. Antarctic weather systems can develop at a speed that turns calm into lethal fury within hours. Creatures that relax vigilance during calm periods rarely survive long enough to pass on their genes. This is life between ashes and storms, a life that has learned not only to endure catastrophe, but to use it as a driving force for evolution and adaptation. Every storm that devastates also redistributes resources, creates new opportunities, and tests biological limits. It is a cycle of destruction and renewal that sculpts life capable of thriving where prosperity seems impossible. Il y a more. In the seemingly desolate vastness of Antarctica, where each creature battles individually against elements that appear to conspire against life itself, there exists an invisible network of connections that transforms this frozen continent into a single, interdependent organism. Every breath, every movement, every heartbeat resonates through ecological webs that link the smallest microorganism to the largest oceanic predators. Antarctic krill, microscopic crustaceans that seem insignificant when observed individually, reveal themselves as the absolute foundation upon which all southern life depends. These tiny organisms are not merely food, they are living transformers, converting solar energy captured by phytoplankton into protein usable by creatures millions of times larger. Each kilogram of krill represents billions of concentrated calories, packaged in a form that can be processed by digestive systems ranging from giant whales to tiny fish. It is a universal energy currency that sustains extraordinary biodiversity in an environment with very few primary energy sources. During daily vertical migrations, when trillions of krill rise from the depths to feed on phytoplankton, feeding events synchronize the behavior of the entire Antarctic marine community. Seals adjust their diving schedules to match these ascents. Penguins modify swimming routes to intercept moving krill clouds. Whales alter migratory patterns to exploit seasonal concentrations of these vital crustaceans. This synchronization is not coincidence. It is the result of millions of years of coevolution, intertwining the fates of seemingly unrelated species into absolute mutual dependence. Every krill predator has evolved specific adaptations to maximize resource capture, from whale baleen plates to specialized penguin beaks, from seal molars to fish gill filters. Humpback whales, seasonal visitors to Antarctic waters, exemplify this interdependence magnificently. These ocean giants travel thousands of kilometers from tropical waters, where they reproduce without feeding, to Antarctic waters, where abundant food allows accumulation of the energy reserves necessary to sustain entire reproductive cycles. Their feeding techniques transform krill hunting into collaborative art. Groups of humpback whales develop cooperative strategies in which individuals assume specific roles to corral krill clouds through coordination rivaling human military tactics. One whale dives beneath the krill swarm, while others position themselves along the sides, creating a cylinder of predators that forces prey into a confined space. The bubble net feeding technique reveals extraordinary behavioral sophistication. Humpback whales release streams of air bubbles in spirals rising from 50 meters deep, creating cylindrical curtains that confuse and concentrate krill. When the krill clouds are compressed at the center of this bubble net, the whales emerge simultaneously with mouths open, swallowing thousands of liters of crustacean-rich water in a single coordinated motion. This cooperation among humpback whales requires complex communication through vocalizations that can travel hundreds of kilometers through Antarctic waters. Specific songs coordinate dive timing, positioning during bubble net formations, and precise moments for surfacing to feed. It is an oceanic language, organizing collaborative behavior On a scale that defies human comprehension of cetacean intelligence, emperor penguins, seemingly focused solely on individual and family survival, prove themselves fundamental ecological regulators maintaining population balance across multiple marine species. Their massive feeding needs during reproduction create predatory pressure that prevents explosive population growth of krill and fish, which could destabilize entire marine ecosystems. During hunting expeditions, emperor penguins can dive to depths of 600 meters, reaching oceanic zones where they compete directly with seals and smaller whales for resources. This interspecific competition ensures more efficient distribution of predatory pressure across different ecological niches, preventing overexploitation of any single food source. Their feces, deposited in terrestrial colonies, transport oceanic nutrients to Antarctic land ecosystems that are almost entirely dependent on this marine fertilization. Each deposit carries nitrogen, phosphorus, and other essential elements that support the growth of lichens, mosses, and microorganisms, forming the limited but vital terrestrial food chains. Weddell seals function as underwater gardeners, keeping breathing holes in the sea ice open through constant dental excavation. These holes do not benefit seals alone. They create surface access points used by multiple marine species during periods when ice cover would otherwise be impenetrable. Antarctic fish, vertically migrating krill, and even smaller whales take advantage of these seal-maintained openings for surface air access or as navigation routes through ever-changing ice landscapes. It is unconscious ecosystem engineering creating shared infrastructure essential for the survival of multiple species. Extremophile microorganisms colonizing ice surfaces and exposed rocks act as the invisible foundation supporting all Antarctic terrestrial life. These bacteria and microscopic algae convert limited sunlight and scarce mineral nutrients into biomass that feeds tiny invertebrates, which in turn sustain arthropod populations, the only terrestrial food available to land-nesting birds. This terrestrial food web, seemingly simple, reveals extraordinary complexity at a molecular scale. Different microbial species specialize in processing distinct nutrient types, creating chains of chemical transformation that maximize utilization of every organic molecule in an environment where waste means death. Antarctic lichens, composite organisms representing symbiosis between fungi and algae, exemplify biological cooperation that transcends fundamental taxonomic divisions. Fungi provide physical structure and protection against extreme conditions, while algae contribute photosynthetic capacity, converting sunlight into usable energy. This partnership allows colonization of rocky surfaces too hostile for any single organism. During Antarctic storms, when surface conditions become lethal for exposed life, these lichens enter cryptobiosis, a complete suspension of metabolic activity that permits survival under conditions lasting weeks or months. When conditions improve, they resume photosynthetic activity as if uninterrupted, demonstrating resilience that defies conventional biological understanding. Albatrosses and petrels act as ecological connectors, transporting nutrients and energy between Antarctic ecosystems and global oceans. During migrations covering tens of thousands of kilometers annually, they carry chemical elements absorbed in Antarctic waters and deposit them at nesting or feeding sites across entire oceans. This transcontinental nutrient transfer creates energy flows connecting Antarctica to tropical, temperate, and Arctic ecosystems. Guano deposited by seabirds on sub-Antarctic islands contains chemical components originating in Antarctic waters, forming biogeochemical bridges that integrate Antarctica into global cycles of carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus. This is the invisible web that transforms Antarctica from a frozen desert into an integrated ecosystem, where every component, no matter how small, plays an essential role in maintaining the whole. Every local extinction reverberates through connections that may affect distant species. Every reproductive success of one species creates opportunities benefiting others. It is interdependence that reveals Antarctica not as a collection of creatures fighting alone for survival, but as a singular planetary organism where each individual heartbeat contributes to the collective pulse of southern life. In the frozen reaches of the world, where thermometers record temperatures that could freeze dreams and wine sculpt ice cathedrals with millennial patience, something new stirs. It is not the natural movement of the extreme seasons Antarctica has known for millions of years. It is a change that whispers through the ice with a voice the southern creatures have never heard before, the voice of planetary uncertainty. The first evidence of this transformation does not come from thermometers or satellites, but through the keen senses of creatures that have learned to read subtle signs of environmental change as a matter of survival. Veteran albatrosses, ocean navigators that have memorized wind and current patterns over decades of flight, begin to find migratory routes that no longer match the atmospheric maps etched into their instincts. Air currents that supported transoceanic flights for generations shift to different latitudes. Pressure systems that allowed effortless navigation across thousands of ocean kilometers fragment into unpredictable turbulence. These lords of the Antarctic winds, accustomed to meteorological precision that permits survival with near-zero margin for error, discover that the very air is learning new lessons in atmospheric physics. In the ocean depths, veteran Weddell seals that have followed the same feeding routes for decades begin to encounter waters with temperatures that no longer match their ancestral experience. Thermoclines, invisible boundaries between water layers of different temperatures, shift to depths that force adjustments in hunting techniques refined over millions of years of evolution. Swarms of krill, the foundational food source of the entire Antarctic ecosystem, respond to these oceanic thermal changes through migratory shifts that create cascading effects across entire food chains. Concentrations that sustained penguin colonies for millennia disperse into areas requiring longer feeding journeys, forcing parental birds to leave nests for periods that test the survival limits of their chicks. Glaciers bordering the Antarctic continent, ice sculptures shaped over hundreds of thousands of years, begin accelerating their descent into the ocean. The sound of this accelerated movement echoes through the waters like the laments of sleeping giants prematurely awakened. Icebergs of continental scale detach from the edges of the ice sheet with a frequency that transforms rare events into routine occurrences. Each released iceberg carries entire ecosystems that developed in isolation over decades or centuries. Algal colonies, microbial communities, even populations of marine invertebrates evolved under subglacial conditions are suddenly exposed to open oceans, where different conditions can mean local extinction for life forms unique to the planet. Accelerated melting creates plumes of fresh water that alter ocean salinity on scales affecting global currents. These currents, which functioned as the planet's circulatory system for millions of years, transporting heat and nutrients across entire oceans, begin showing signs of slowdown that could alter global climate in ways still not fully understood by science. Emperor penguins, masters of survival in extreme conditions, face challenges that no previous evolutionary adaptation can fully resolve. Sea ice that sustained reproductive colonies for millennia forms later and breaks up earlier, compressing the available time windows for reproductive cycles that already operate at minimal error margins. Chicks dependent on stable ice platforms for full development of waterproof plumage find these platforms disappearing before they are ready for independent aquatic survival. It is an unprecedented evolutionary dilemma. Creatures perfectly adapted to specific extreme conditions confront changes occurring on timescales too rapid for conventional biological adaptation. Some colonies respond through extraordinary behavioral flexibility, exploring alternative breeding sites they had never used before. Others demonstrate surprising ability to adjust reproductive timing, initiating mating cycles at different periods to synchronize with altered sea ice availability. It is real-time evolutionary experimentation, where success or failure determines which lineages will survive to pass adaptive genes to future generations. Leopard seals, supreme predators reliant on sea ice as hunting platforms, develop modified feeding techniques allowing them to exploit opportunities created by environmental changes. Open waters where ice once existed create new hunting territories, but also eliminate traditional ambush points that relied on ice edges as predatory camouflage. These behavioral adaptations reveal extraordinary plasticity in species evolved for extreme specialization. It demonstrates that Antarctic life possesses reserves of adaptive flexibility that remained dormant during periods of environmental stability, but can be activated when environmental change creates new selective pressures. Humpback whales migrating to Antarctic waters discover that krill concentrations, the foundation of their feeding strategies, shift to different areas due to changes in ocean currents and nutrient availability. These shifts force adjustments in migratory routes refined over generations, creating additional energetic costs that affect the reproductive success of entire populations. Some whale populations display remarkable capacity to learn new feeding routes through social communication, where individuals discovering alternative food sources share this information with family groups through complex vocalizations. It is adaptive knowledge transfer, allowing collective response to environmental changes that would be devastating for isolated individuals. Extremophile microorganisms forming the base of Antarctic terrestrial food chains respond to temperature and humidity changes through metabolic adjustments that can accelerate or slow nutrient processing. These microscopic changes propagate through entire trophic networks, affecting food availability for invertebrates that sustain land birds. Antarctic lichens, composite organisms representing symbiotic partnerships between fungi and algae, face stress that can disrupt associations stable for thousands of years. Temperature changes alter photosynthetic efficiency of partner algae, while humidity shifts affect fungi's ability to provide structural protection. Some partnerships dissolve, while others rearrange into new configurations that may be more or less efficient than the originals. Amid these transformations, unexpected opportunities also arise. Areas of Antarctica that remained ice-covered for millions of years are exposed for the first time, revealing virgin soils that can be colonized by life forms capable of exploiting these new ecological niches. It is a biological frontier, opening in real time, offering a natural laboratory for observing colonization processes and the establishment of ecological communities. Species demonstrating greater behavioral and physiological flexibility find in these changes opportunities for territorial and population expansion. Seabirds that can adjust feeding patterns discover new resources created by oceanic alterations. Marine mammals capable of modifying migratory routes explore previously inaccessible waters. But it is in the young that true hope resides. Chicks born into an already altered environment carry no expectations based on historical conditions. For them, the new normal is simply normal. They develop behaviors and environmental preferences that may be better suited to future conditions than to past ones. These emerging generations represent ongoing evolutionary experiments, where natural selection tests new combinations of traits that may confer advantage in a changed world. Some traits that were neutral or even disadvantageous under historical conditions may prove crucial for survival in a modified environment. Antarctica, a natural laboratory of extreme adaptation for millions of years, transforms into a theater of accelerated evolutionary experimentation. Each season reveals new survival strategies, new ecological partnerships, new balances between competition and cooperation. It is observable evolution on human timescales, a living demonstration that life does not merely respond to change, it embraces it as an opportunity for transformation. The future of Antarctica is not written in the stars nor determined by forces beyond biological control. It is being written now, in real time, through the behavioral choices of every creature that calls this frozen continent home. Every successful adaptation, every behavioral innovation, every new ecological partnership contributes to a narrative of resilience that may determine not only the survival of Antarctic life, but the future evolution of planetary biodiversity. It is a moment of transformation that tests not only the limits of biological adaptability, but also reveals reserves of evolutionary flexibility hidden during periods of environmental stability. Antarctica breathes change, and in that breath carries both fear and hope. Fear of the unknown, hope in life's infinite capacity to reinvent itself in the face of the impossible. At the end of this journey through the realm of eternal ice, we stand in reverent silence before the grandeur we have witnessed. Antarctica is not merely a continent. It is a living cathedral where each creature offers a daily prayer of resistance against impossibility. It is a cosmic laboratory where life writes its most elegant equations, with ink of warm blood, upon the parchment of eternal ice. Every penguin that survives the polar winter, every seal that emerges from the frozen depths, every albatross that navigates storms capable of destroying mountains, all carry within them the testament that life knows no limits, only challenges awaiting creative solutions. In this continent where thermometers shatter from the cold and winds redefine the meaning of strength, we discover that fragility and resilience are not opposites, but partners in the cosmic dance of survival. Antarctica teaches us that adaptation is not surrender. It is the supreme art of transforming limitation into liberation. Every extreme adaptation we observe here represents a victory of biological imagination over the tyranny of impossible conditions. It is living proof that the universe conspires not against life, but in its favor, always offering new stages for experiments in existence. In the waters connecting Antarctica to the rest of the planet, we discover that isolation is an illusion. Every ocean current carries Antarctic whispers to tropical shores. Every migration connects this edge of the world to the center of all worlds. We are all, humans and creatures alike, participants in a planetary symphony where Antarctic chords resonate through every global breath. This expedition through wild Antarctica reminds us that we are temporary guardians of wonders that transcend comprehension. If this journey touched your soul, share it with fellow explorers of the natural world. Leave a comment about the moment that most moved your heart. Subscribe to continue exploring the most extraordinary sanctuaries on our planet. Activate notifications so you never miss an expedition. Every view, every like, every share keeps alive the flame of curiosity that lights the way to unknown worlds. Thank you for accompanying us on this frozen odyssey, until our next encounter with the impossible made possible through the majesty of wildlife. The journey continues,